Okay, my guess is this is probably all we're going to have for tonight, so we're about a minute early, but we'll go ahead and get started. Oh, it does? Okay, yeah, mine says 6 actually also. Okay. I feel like I'm getting a lot of feedback there. Okay, we will call the meeting to order, and will you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for coming out today, and thanks to all the council members who could actually make it. It's kind of called on a little bit of short notice. We have to have a motion to excuse both Mr. Gorman and Mr. Henning. They had prior commitments to tonight, so is there a motion to excuse those two gentlemen?
And second.
Motion to excuse both Mr. Gorman and Mr. Henning by Mr. Merkel, second by Ms. Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, they're excused. Okay, we have a short agenda for tonight. Roll call, please. Sorry.
Mr. Farmer?
Here.
Merkel?
Here.
Kelly? Here. Bachman?
Here.
And Stevens.
Here. We have a short agenda for tonight. That's really just one item, but we do have the public hearing. And as we do with all public hearings, I'll kind of just explain how the procedure goes. The staff will present the case. I'll ask council members if they have any questions for the staff. I'll ask for a motion to open the floor to the public comment. Then I will ask for any public comments in favor or opposition of the application. Please be advised you will not be able to defer your time to a speaker who's already spoken this evening. I will ask for a motion to close the floor for the public comment, ask staff for if they would like to respond to any of the public comments. I will ask if there are any further discussion among council members. I will ask for a motion to recommend, approval with conditions, or disapproval of this request. And lastly, I'll ask for a motion to close the meeting. Welcome. You didn't miss anything yet. So for the public hearings, anyone that thinks they may speak, this doesn't require, if you raise your hand now, it doesn't require you to speak, but anyone that thinks that they may speak or have something to say on this issue, we need to swear you in. So is there anyone out there that thinks that they may speak? Okay, if you all would stand up and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give to this council is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, then please say, I do. I do. Okay, thank you. You're all duly sworn in. Okay, we'll start the public hearing. Is there a motion to start the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Motion to start the public hearing by Mr. Merkel and second by Mr. Bachman. Okay, I'll turn it over to Martina.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try to be concise and to the point, and if you have questions, just let me know. I'll do my best to answer those. So just to give you a little bit of background as to where we were previously and where we are now based upon recent events. So as you may recall, previously, council had received a recommendation from the Planning Commission to adopt legislation previously to allow 6 adult use cannabis operators. Adult use is sort of the term that's used in the ORC for recreational marijuana. So the recommendation that was made by the Planning Commission last November was to allow a total of 6 adult use cannabis operators within the city. And of those 6, 2 could be dispensaries and the remaining 4 could be cultivators and processors in the same districts as where medical marijuana is currently allowed. So currently, the city's code allows medical marijuana cultivation, processing, and dispensaries in the CMX and CMI districts. Additionally, medical marijuana processing and dispensaries are permitted in the MSD district. So that's the allowance for the medical marijuana currently. On January 16th, council voted on the recommendation of the Planning Commission to allow 6 adult-use cannabis operators. The result of that was that there was an insufficient number of votes to reject or approve that recommendation, therefore it pretty much died at that point in time because it couldn't move forward. Most recently, the most recent version of the Ohio budget bill in Columbus, which if the governor signs it before July 1st, which it's on track, it looks like, to do that, it would become effective July 1st of 2025. So there are a couple of provisions in that budget bill, which I understand, if I remember correctly, is about 5,000 pages or so, which affects the adult use cannabis. And so the first is that under the current ORC provisions regarding adult use cannabis, the municipalities and townships are provided with the specific authority in a specific provision of the ORC at 3980.25 to prohibit, restrict, limit adult use cannabis operators within your city. The Ohio budget bill proposes to repeal that, such that effective July 1st, the city or township would not be allowed to prohibit or limit the number of adult use operators within your jurisdictional limits, unless it's done before July 1st. The second provision is under the current ORC, cities and townships which do have adult use cannabis dispensaries are entitled to receive 36% of the 10% special tax on that. It's basically called the host use tax. So basically, if you're a host community that has those adult use dispensaries within your jurisdiction, you get tax money from the state for that. The second provision in the budget bill with respect to this is you would no longer receive that tax money. So if you don't have one of those dispensaries currently operating, as of July 1st, that's going to be phased out over the period of 5 years, and you won't be getting any of that tax money. So basically, what the effect of this budget bill does with respect to the adult use is to say if you don't have a prohibition or restrictions in effect as of July 1st, then you're not allowed to prohibit them from coming into your city, and you're not going to get any of the tax money if they do come in. Therefore, we have put forward a couple of ordinances for your consideration to prohibit the adult use operators within the city to become effective immediately before the July 1st deadline. We had a planning commission meeting last night, and they voted to recommend prohibition. A couple of things I do want to point out. The ORC does allow for home grow. So even if you vote to prohibit the adult use operators within the city, people are still allowed to home grow pursuant to the ORC. You're not allowed to prohibit research. So if somebody wants to come in and do the research for that, you can't prohibit that. There's also, I believe we talked about this before, the 10B license. Currently, the ORC allows a 10B license, which is basically if you have medical marijuana operators within your city, which the city does, and that's allowed currently, then if somebody applies for a 10B license with the state and they get it, then they can also do adult use cannabis. It's sort of tacked on, quote unquote, sort of grandfathered in, if you want to look at it that way. They can tag the adult use onto their medical use. So that would not be prohibited if they got one of those 10B licenses. And when I spoke to the cannabis attorney, I believe it was last fall, basically the logic for that was because they've already put out the capital to get the medical marijuana license, so that's why they allowed them to tack on the adult use to the medical marijuana license, was the reasoning for that. So that's why we proposed the 2 ordinances before you today. If you have questions, I'll do my best to answer those. Speaking with the Planning Commission last night, I'll preface this with what I told them. This is based upon what I know now. I don't know what the legislature is going to do in the future about this, but I'm just basing it on what I know now and what's in the budget bill. One last item, since they are emergencies, it would take 5 votes to approve. Wanted to make sure I reminded you of that. Emergencies require 5.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. So this is this is yes or no with no discussion on the number.
Right. Basically, the legislation in front of you would prohibit them altogether, with the exceptions that I just mentioned a few minutes ago. You can't prohibit the home grow, you can't prohibit the 10B, you can't prohibit the research, so.
But the one operator that's operating now on Main Street remains. If he wishes to process adult use, he can. If he wishes to dispense, he can or cannot.
My understanding is that's just a processor, right, Amanda? He does not have the dispensary license?
Correct, it's
Okay.
just a process. So that doesn't mean they couldn't pursue a medical dispensary license, but they have not at this time.
And correct me if I'm wrong, that facility on Main is only processing for medical?
Correct.
Okay.
But I'm just saying is that someone else to come in to do a dispensary would not, nothing beyond what we currently have in place right now. So this would stop it right now with one entity in operation.
Well, they wouldn't be prohibited from, someone could come in if they received a license from the state for medical. There are still places in the city that they would be able to dispense medical marijuana. So if they were then to get the, was it 10B licensing, they would then be able to distribute adult use recreational marijuana.
It kind of comes in a backdoor way of, even though you might prohibit it, someone medical-wise could still come in and do it
Correct.
because of
Yes.
Through the medical license.
past operation.
But it's my understanding that the medical license isn't that easy to get. I know that, I believe that the company that was along Main Street a couple years ago attempted to procure one of those licenses, and even though they're an established establishment, they weren't able to get that, so.
But at this time also, the city essentially could not act to prohibit, discourage another operation from coming in. Basically, we're at their mercy.
You mean medical-wise, or?
Well, medical, or, well, if they come in with doing medical, then, and later on, if they apply, they could get adult use. So both of those potentially could be there, but I'm just saying, the council would not have any vote in terms of doing a yes or no, correct?
Right, as long as they had the medical license and they were able to get the 10B license for the adult use, and they were in the zoning districts where it's permitted, then yes, they could do it.
Could we change, in order to narrow it down, to discourage further potential placement, discourage other, taking some of the zoning locations where they could be placed, to like narrow it down so it's only like on Main Street?
Well, currently allowed on Main Street, so the MSD district, CMI and CMX is where it's permitted.
Well, no, I'm just saying if it's allowed in more than one area, and we can narrow it down, potentially saying just along Main Street and not out on Hoke Road, for instance.
You could follow the procedure to change the zoning code to even further narrow where the medical marijuana is allowed, if that's what you're asking. I think you could do that.
Well, I mean, because I think going into the future, I think it'd be one of these things of not having it basically more in a neighborhood area where you really would not want to have this type of operation to begin with. You more want to have it in a business area.
Well,
This is commercial mixed use and commerce manufacturing industry. That's where the cultivation, processing, and dispensaries are allowed, and processing and dispensaries are allowed on the Main Street district. So,
Is anything we're doing, to my understanding, this is just based off of recreational, what we're doing tonight is not medical?
right.
Correct,
I just
okay.
wanted to be able to, I just wanted
Yeah.
to explain the medical and how that 10B currently works. Now, again, I'm just going to say, I don't know what the legislature is going to do. So they could change this. I'm based upon what I know now, and upon what I know now, that's why we drafted the legislation. We wanted to give you another opportunity. I thought you should have another opportunity to look at this and determine if you would just want to go ahead and prohibit it before July 1st. I think last night, Mr. Foley, I think, is the one who pretty much succinctly said, so basically what this boils down to is, do we want to let the state determine our future, or do we want to do it? And I think that was probably a good way to put it.
Well, it's kind of like the question I asked last night of, this kind of runs into the home rule type aspect of what you're able to do in your neighborhoods.
Yeah, but over the years, the state has, in my opinion, very much chipped into that home rule authority more and more over the years.
Any other questions or comments for staff at all?
The only other thing that I talked about last time, and I think Greg mirrored on that same issue, was the residential areas. We wanted it restricted from residential areas. That's the only thing that I remember talking.
Yeah, I had thought that the area on Hook Road, Hook and Winger, had been rezoned for business operation. This potentially would be a location where this operation could go in the future if something were to be located. And what I'm just looking at is not encouraging something like that to be placed out on Hook Road. Another area where potentially things would be placed in some nearby neighborhood versus on a business district where it's primarily business. If it's going to happen on Main Street, not on Hook Road.
If that is something that council wants to do, we can definitely do that. We can take it to planning commission and ask them to make a recommendation to council on if you want that narrowed. I mean, but I think for the purpose of this meeting, we're looking at whether or not to ban just the recreational marijuana in the city.
Yeah, I was looking
And
to
it's-
see, what other steps might be in the future. If we act on this, what could be the next step to?
Martina, just based on listening to last night, I wanted to clarify that if we put a prohibition in place in the future, if the city chooses to repeal it later, that we would not have any control on dictating the number of recreational facilities in the city. Is that correct?
Right, if the current version of the budget bill passes, so let's say you go ahead and enact this prohibition tonight, and the budget bill passes July 1st, and let's say September 1st, you want to go back and repeal this, then what you'd be operating under is the current version of the ORC, which says you can't limit the number. Unless the legislature goes back and changes the revised code again. But I think you're correct in that.
Anything else? Okay, is there a motion to open the floor to public comment?
So moved?
Motion to open the floor to public comment by Mr. Bachman, second by Ms. Kelly. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay, we are open to public comment. So we're going to ask for any public comments in favor of the application. So if there's any opponents of this, if you'll stand or show me your hand.
Mr. Mayor, I guess to
No.
clarify, not to, well, I guess in how you read these, if you were a proponent of this, you're a proponent of prohibiting it. I know it's moot because people can come up and,
Right.
say whatever. I'm just, to kind of clarify, it is kind of one of those, because nobody's making an application here.
Yeah. Is there anyone in favor of prohibiting the legislation? Okay. I thought, good clarification. I would have hated to shut you out, Okay, so we'll start with Linda. You can come up first, and we ask everyone to state your name and address for the record.
Great. Thank you all for listening to me, and I appreciate the opportunity to address you. I was here in January and addressed you, and I really want to applaud how well I felt like I was listened to at the time. I listed a number of reasons why, as a school board member, that we really felt like, and we wound up passing a resolution that I gave you each a copy of. We felt like this was not a good idea in our city, and you listened to us, and we appreciate that. Obviously, we still feel the same way. I could go through the laundry list, I don't know if you want me to, of what I said in January and how it might impact the students in our school and therefore the city of Clayton. But I just wanted to be here again this evening to applaud what you had done in the past and tell you I'm with you if you're going the way that I want you to go.
Well put. Thank you. Next.
Good evening, I'm Debbie Poulis, 6711 Oakfield Drive. Just a question. Have we had any applications in the last 6 months to a year for an adult use establishment in Clayton? Okay, so that's encouraging. And I'm kind of just going to echo what she said. Thank you for listening. It's a really important issue. Take a look around, and I know it's a hard decision because we're also thinking economically, but I appreciate the time to speak and appreciate you really giving this its due. Thank you.
Thanks for coming in today.
Chris Poulis, 6711 Oakfield, Dayton, Ohio, 45415. I want to applaud Martina and Amanda. Thank you for bringing this proposal to the committee and to the board. I've done a lot of work on this just to see what's happening. When you look at the House Bill 160 and the Senate Bill 56, they're both exactly what you said, Martina. They're stripping away the economic incentive to even do this as a municipality, much less really does any of us want this to be in our neighborhood? No. But if there was an economic incentive, you could almost buy off on it. But they're stripping that away. I really believe the state doesn't understand what it's doing. And I think you said it succinctly, Martina, just a minute ago. You don't know if they're going to change their mind a year from now. But this, the way they phrased it up, puts the power in your hands and not in the state's hands to determine how many they would like here if, in fact, we decided not to prohibit it. So I want to thank you for having the foresight to look at this information, get together tonight. I know it's an emergency meeting, and those are hard to pull off. And I really appreciate you guys doing that, and hopefully we come out of here the way we all think we're going to. So much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay, is there any opponents? Did I say that? No. Is there any opponents? Anyone else want to speak against this? Okay, hearing none. I'll ask for a motion to close the floor to public comment.
So moved.
Second?
Motion to close the floor to public comment by Mr. Bachman, second by Mr. Merkel. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, anything else from your side, Martina, or
The only thing is, you'll notice there are two ordinances on the agenda, both prohibiting the adult use. One makes revisions to 112108, which is the planning and zoning. The second makes revisions to Chapter 733, which is the business, both prohibiting adult use, as we've discussed a minute ago. The reason there are two separate ones is because I felt it prudent to put it in two separate provisions of the code to better protect the city. As I said a minute ago, at this point, I'm just working on the information we have right now, doing the best we can to protect the city. That's why there's two different ordinances on there.
okay, thank you.
And they're both emergencies, and I said a minute ago, they both require 5 votes to pass.
Anything else for the staff? Any other discussion among council members? Okay, I'll ask for a motion.
Hearing?
I'm sorry, say it
Move to
again.
close the hearing?
Yeah.
We did.
No, we closed the public hearing, public comments, now you have to close the public hearing.
Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
That's why I was making a motion.
Okay.
And second.
By Mr. Merkel, second by Ms. Kelly, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. So is there a motion to recommend? I guess, are we at that point?
Yeah, so
Recommend?
basically, Barb would need to read the title of the first ordinance.
Ordinance O06-2507, an ordinance prohibiting adult-use cannabis cultivators, processors, and retail dispensaries within the city of Clayton, Ohio, and declaring an emergency. This is for Chapter 1121.08.
They would need a motion for an emergency.
Did you make the motion?
I'll move for the emergency.
I'll second.
Motion to name this ordinance an emergency by Mr. Bachman, second by Mr. Merkel. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, is there a motion on the ordinance?
Move to approve the ordinance to prohibit.
I'll second.
Motion to approve the ordinance as written by Mr. Merkel, second by Mr. Farmer. All in favor, roll call, please.
Farmer,
Yes.
Merkel,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Bachman,
Yes.
and Stevens.
Before I say my vote, I'm going to say, I'm going to do something that I promised I would never do, and that is to go with the rest of the council on something that I disagree on. I do not like the idea of prohibiting business. I don't want marijuana sold in residential areas. I don't want marijuana sold to all of our kids at Northmont or any other school. I think this will end up putting us on a little bit of the wrong side of history, but I don't want this to die on the table. And I've done this one other time. I voted against my own mind, and I've got to tell you, I've regretted it ever since, and I'll probably regret this one too, but my vote is yes also. So that gives us 5 votes, and so the ordinance passes. Is there a, we got,
Now we have to go for the ordinance, right?
That was for the ordinance.
yeah. And is there a motion to declare an emergency? Oh,
Ordinance 006-2508, an ordinance prohibiting adult-use cannabis cultivators, processors, and retail dispensaries within the city of Clayton, Ohio, and declaring an emergency, and this is for Chapter 733.
I move to declare an emergency.
Second.
motion to declare an emergency for the ordinance by Mr. Farmer, second by Mr. Merkel. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, let the record show that's unanimous. And is there a motion on the ordinance?
Motion to approve the ordinance to prohibiting the marijuana.
Second.
Motion to approve the ordinance as written by Mr. Merkel, second by Mr. Farmer. We have a roll call, please.
Farmer,
Yes.
Merkel,
Yes.
Kelly, Bachman,
Yes.
and Stevens.
And ditto on my former position, yes. The ordinance passes. Is there a motion to adjourn the council meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Motion to adjourn our meeting by Ms. Kelly and seconded by Mr. Farmer. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for coming in.